the court heard. There were also shots to the right side of her lower neck and her right forearm, and 2 injuries on the right side of her chest and right knee.
Yeah, somebody definitely wanted her dead.
You know, there was no mistake in that one. You know, 1 shot right between the 4 eyes as well. You know, it's like, oh.
Yeah, the other one to the side of the head, 1 in the neck.
Yeah.
My impression from that is, because you wouldn't bother doing that and then shooting somebody in the chest and in the arm, my guess is they've gone straight into the bedroom and just started firing. 1's hit them in the chest, 1 in the arm, they're not dead. At that point, they're on the side going, what the hell, ow, I'm in pain, this hurts, I'm bleeding, holding the chest or whatever. He's walked over, put it next to her head, pulled the trigger.
Dead or not, they really wanted that person dead.
Oh, yeah.
So, Daniel and Nicholas, they are Sheila's twin boys, they're 6 years old. They were found in their beds in their own room that was formerly Sheila's room. They appeared to have been shot whilst in bed. The court heard that Daniel had been shot 5 times in the back of the head, 4 times with the gun held within 1 foot of his head, and once from over 2 feet away. Nicholas had been shot 3 times, all contact or close proximity shots. They're 6-year-old boys.
It's always the kiddie cases that do me. I remember, I'm going to mention the Evil Pudding again. I remember one of their episodes about this guy, and he'd gone around killing loads and loads of women. He had raped, he'd abused, he'd done some sick, masochistic shit. It was an absolute creep. And the stuff he'd done was terrible. Okay? He deserved all types of hell. But the thing that stuck with me the most was a 6 or 7-year-old boy was in his way when he was trying to get to a woman, and he stabbed him straight through the back, pulled the knife out, just carried on walking. Didn't even look at him. It was literally like just taking off an old jacket and discarding it and carry on going, not caring the world. The fuck is wrong with you?
It's just, I literally can't comprehend it. I cannot imagine it.
I think my problem is the other way, is that I can imagine it. I can't imagine me doing it, but I can imagine the scene, and I can imagine somebody doing it. And I think that's my problem. That's my issue with it, is that I know that what you're reading is not a work of fiction.
No, and I think that's the thing that's hard.
Yeah.
This is all very real. This happened. These boys are, you know, real boys. These aren't characters. They lost their lives for no reason whatsoever. Sheila, the boy's mother, was found on the floor in the master bedroom with her mother. She was in her nightdress, her feet were bare, and she had 2 bullet wounds under her chin, one of them on her throat. The pathologist, Peter, I think it's Vanenzis, I apologise if I've said that wrong, said that the lower of the injuries had occurred from 3 inches away, and that the one higher was a contact injury. The higher of the 2 would have killed her immediately. The lower injury would have killed her too. He said, but not necessarily straight away.
Okay, so in theory, she could have put it under her chin, pulled the trigger, it missed every single, I won't say organ, but and part that's important. And then she's gone, Jesus Christ, and then bam, done it again. In theory.
Yes. Vanenzis testified that it would be possible for a person with such an injury to stand up and walk around.
Yeah.
But the lack of blood on her nightdress suggested to him that she had not done this. He believed that the lower of the injuries had happened first because it had caused bleeding inside the neck. The court heard that if the immediately fatal wound had happened first, the bleeding would not have occurred to the same extent, and the pattern of bloodstains on her nightdress suggested that she'd been sitting up when she received both injuries.
Yeah, I understand that. I've read stories about people who've tried shooting themselves at times before, and there's like been occasions where it's gone up and round, and it's caused them serious injury, but it's not caused any mental problems. It's not killed them, and it's literally there's like no exit wound. It's literally gone up underneath and through, and you're like, oh my god, the chances. But it happens.
So, blood and urine samples indicated that Sheila had taken its haloperidol and several days earlier had used cannabis. There were no marks on her body suggestive of any kind of struggle.
Okay.
The firearms officer who first saw her said her feet and hands were clean, her fingernails manicured, not broken, and her fingertips free of blood, dirt, or powder.
Fingertips were free of blood, dirt, or powder. She's just shot herself in the face. There's no blood on her fingernails.
There was no trace of lead
Or powder.
dust. The rifle magazine would have been loaded at least twice during these killings, and this would usually leave lubricant and material from the bullets on the hands.
I don't know about that. I don't know enough about that, but yeah.
I don't. A scene of crimes officer, Detective Constable Hammersley.
We call them a SOCO, scene of crime officer. I don't know what they have a similar principle elsewhere, I suppose, but they probably have different names. We call them a SOCO.
Said there were blood stains on the back of her right hand, but that otherwise her hands were clean.
Okay.
There was no blood on Sheila's feet or other debris, such as the sugar that was on the downstairs floor. Low traces of lead were found on her hands and forehead at post-mortem, but the levels were consistent with the everyday handling of things around the house. Forensic scientist Brian Elliott testified that if Sheila had loaded 18 cartridges into the magazine, he would expect to see more lead on her hands. The blood on her nightdress was consistent with her own, and no trace of firearm discharge residue was on it. Given that Sheila was wearing just a nightdress, it was hard to see how she could have carried the cartridges, the rifle, without the silencer or sights attached, was lying on her body, pointing up at her neck. June's Bible lay on the floor to the right of Sheila. It was normally kept in a bedside cupboard. June's fingerprints were on it, as were others that could be not identified, including one made by a child.
Jesus Christ. Well, that's probably the wrong term, but you know what I'm saying.
I mean, it's
Okay.
such a horrendous crime scene.
Imagery-wise, a fingerprint on a Bible of a child, I am hoping that's just something that's been made weeks previously when that kid has gone, Mum, here's your Bible, or when the crazy nan has been like, right, okay, you need to do 20 prayers before you're allowed your donut, then I'm hoping it's just the kid going, yeah, there's your fucking Bible back. Does that make sense? Rather than what's actually implied in that ratio of text.
But can you imagine... Sorry.
No, you're
Could
right.
you imagine the rage of the person that's gone in there, whoever it may be? We're led to believe that it's Sheila at this point, that she's committed these murders and then committed suicide. That is going through their mind at the time of doing this, and the order that they've done those killings, and the fear in those children. How scared those two little boys were.
Yeah. And what's more is, I'm lucky because I've known fear, but I'm not fucking dead. I've known fear where there has been violence. I've known fear where there's been potential serious harm. But I'm here. These kids knew fear. Probably because, let's be honest, you go into a building, you don't take the kids out first. You take out the people who are going to cause you a problem first. That's why you took out the big guy. Or she took out the big guy. 6 foot plus. You're the one who's going to potentially stop me. You're the one that's going first. Then he's gone, right, okay, it's time for Mommy. She's gone, it's time for Mommy. She's gone next. Why? Because she's the next biggest. She's the next matriarchal. She's the next potential problem. And then the mum, and then the kids. So from the kids' perspective, They have potentially heard and or seen the chaos, which probably didn't last more than 3 minutes, hopefully, that has been the death of 3 people that, in their mind, regardless of the abuse inflicted on them beforehand, they loved, they were safe with, they were protected with.
It's just...
And at the hands of either their mother or, as we've figured out, this fella. And can you say why? Because you've not told them yet. I don't know if you realise you've not covered it yet.
Because so far we're led to believe that it is Sheila.
And why is it not Sheila?
Well, suggestively in the police reports, they're saying that she had no sort of lead on her hands from the cartridge. They're saying it can be tricky.
It's so much easier than that. Why is it not Sheila?
I don't know. Why is it not Sheila?
The silencer. You said there was a silencer on the gun. She wasn't able to reach with the silencer. I remember you writing it down. She couldn't reach with the silencer to be able to shoot herself.
There was a silencer, I believe, that was involved, and it was on the gun, and she would not have been able to reach because it was a rifle.
So unless she'd rigged it with like a metal hook or something to be able to reach a trigger at that distance, and if she had, you'd have found it by the floor near her, then there was no way it was her.
Yeah, but police and media were initially convinced that it was the murder-suicide theory.
And why wouldn't you be? It goes down the Crazy X theory. Without being terrible, I spoke about Crazy X in Checkmate, yeah? And it was literally, oh yeah, he used to sit there sharpening a knife. Oh yeah, he didn't like people. Oh yeah, he was antisocial. Oh yeah, he called me crazy, blah, blah, blah. Well, with my history,
wow,
who wouldn't put the pieces together after you've been told a load of shit on top of it and then go, yeah, this guy's nuts? That's what they did with her. They went, she has a history of, psychiatric problems. She's been shocked several times. Her mother says she was the spawn of the devil.
Yeah,
so, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're going to believe that she'd off her family.
Yeah, there was definitely a sort of a theory behind it in that sense. But, even to this, the Detective Chief Inspector Thomas Jones, the Deputy Head of CID, was so sure that Sheila had killed her family that he ordered Bamber's cousins out of his office when they asked him to consider whether Bamber had set the whole thing up. And this was reported on the 8th of August, the day after the murders.
I've had several jobs, nothing on this level, obviously, but I've had several jobs, and 80 to 90% of people that I work with, they want to do things quickly and easily and go home at the end of the day. And if you could take one look at this and go, you know what? This guy wants money, these people have been killed, this woman sounds crazy, no further implications, open and shut, she's dead, I'm happy, I get to go home tonight. Of course that's what he's going to do.
Media have definitely gone into it as well. As I said, reported the day after the murders, Daily Express had gone on and said, a farming family affectionately dubbed as the Archers were slaughtered in a bloodbath yesterday, brandishing a gun taken from her father's collection. Deranged divorcee Sheila Bamber, 28, first shot her twin 6-year-old sons. She gunned down her father as he tried to phone for help. Then she murdered her mother before turning the automatic .22 rifle on herself. This was put out by the Daily Express.
Deranged divorcee shot her twin 6-year-old sons.
Well,
now,
apparently, and she'd shot them first.
As the as the son of a father who's killed somebody, how fucking disrespectful. Looking at it from those, the children are obviously dead, but looking at it through the children's eyes to say my mother or my father or any relative has done something that they've not done and called them the things that they've titled her there. Now I get it if she'd gone through with this. I do understand the reasons behind it.
Well,
but look at it through the child's eyes. That's like me going to our kids and going, you know what, Ellen has done blah, 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 when you haven't.
Well,
you look at it that way.
Remember
That's
as well,
just wrong.
I've just said a minute ago The doctor said that